Hey, our dear listeners, and hey, Ola.
Hi there.
It's so good to have you on the show for the first time, I think, right?
It's the very first time and I'm super excited.
Yeah, and you have just joined Espeo Software, and I was wondering if you can share a few words about how you've seen our onboarding and how do you see Espeo Software as a newcomer?
So, yeah, I joined like 2 months ago and I'm in love with how welcoming the team is, how amazing is the way you approach the newcomers, how welcoming. The onboarding process is really smooth and friendly. But I'm really amazed how people in the Poznan's office are welcoming, and there's almost like a family-like vibe. Having meals together and going to the gym together. It's something outstanding. It's something that you would expect in a startup environment, but not something in a long last. It's like 10 plus years software company, but it's a very young vibe, and I
Okay.
truly appreciate it.
And money, of course, right?
Of course.
Yeah, and like, how do you see the perfect fit for Espeo if you would to talk to other candidates for other positions, and like, how do you see that sort of persona, like who fits the best at Espeo?
I would say someone who is definitely a self-starter, because Espeo gives us a lot of freedom to both explore how we can contribute to the company outside of our daily role. So there's a lot of flexibility when it comes to how we want to contribute. And at the same time, there's a great variety of projects and clients we're working with. So I see it as a perfect place to learn from different experiences. This variety is really can be my eye-opening. It's not only blockchain project, but nowadays also AI, and there are also legacy customers when we need to improve the relationship or build on already existing relationship. But there's also a lot of new customers, so it's like full spectrum, and I really appreciate that, and I believe that this is something that might be very interesting for newcomers, especially people who's got multiple backgrounds, and they are like those orchestrators who can just do multiple things at once. I believe that would be a perfect fit for them.
Perfect, thank you so much. And on the AI part, you're actually organizing an event in Finland, right?
Yes.
Like, where is this coming from?
So where is it coming from? One of the tasks which I was given so I joined Espeo as a senior consultant, and one of the tasks which I received was to invigorate the relationships with legacy clients. And as Espeo originated from Finland, there are multiple legacy clients based in Finland and in Nordic countries. I was thinking about how we can approach them to rebuild the existing relationship. And based on my experience with startup and managing huge corporate contracts, it's always nice to get out of your bubble and talk to like-minded people. So hence this is how the idea for the executive dinner come up.
Okay.
Because I was thinking how I can, as I was talking to legacy clients, the subject just coming up over and over again was the AI. I'm like, okay, this is interesting because I can see a pattern when majority of them's are well aware of AI. They've been tinkering with it, but at the same time, majority of them are highlighting the same issue, being there's no top-down strategy for AI. There's, the CTOs are thinking about how they can improve the processes, etc. But everyone is missing this top-down approach, saying, okay, this is how we're gonna implement AI. And by the way, ChatGPT for entire team is not implementation of AI. So I thought, if all of those clients are mentioning the same issues, why not put them in one room and have an open conversation about okay, what's your strategy for AI for 2026, especially that we are organizing it end of January, which is perfect timing. Like, hey, what's your vision for 2026? Because we can see more and more that, for example, based on Accenture report, when it comes to Nordic countries, 81% of companies are tinkering with AI, but only 6% of them have a production-ready implementation. And out of those 6%, 8 out of 10 have seen their ROI growing by 10%. So we can see the first companies seeing financial benefits of production-ready AI system. But again, 81% are still in the tinkering phase. So it's like, okay, let's invite an AI specialist who's going to give us 10, 15 minutes inspirational talk about how AI can really be implemented on the organizational level, and then have a conversation amongst the CEOs. How do we approach it? Exchange experiences. So this is how the idea this is how the idea was born, and we are in the midst of organizing it. So it's going to be 22nd of January, if I'm correct.
Okay, save the date.
Exactly.
Yeah. Actually, when I'm thinking about our customers, which are mainly in finance, then, they are probably on more conservative side here. So it's much easier for them to, let's say, risk a bit with the new business. So they would be more open to implement these solutions for sales, lead generation, and so on, and maybe not risk that much on the current customer base. So that's also a trend I'm seeing, but let's see what 26 brings. But I also wanted to ask you about this. So you're going to ask this question to participants in Finland. However, what's your take? What do you think? How AI will look like in 26?
It's a really good question. I like to... So my background is in blockchain. I've been in this industry since 2012. And I observe how there was this wave of implementing cryptocurrency for the customer base, like B2C, but there wasn't many companies that actually implemented blockchain on the enterprise level. And I look at what's happening in AI in this very moment from a similar lens. With majority of people who are actually using AI nowadays are individuals.
Okay.
And of course, the timeline is much shorter because AI speeds up the process significantly. But we are hearing about companies like Klarna who are reducing their operational cost with AI, and I still believe that it is to come. The big question when it comes to AI on the enterprise level is data security, and this is something that we need to discuss while talking about production-ready AI system for corporations, because the risks are humongous, as you've mentioned. But let's see. Apparently the AI bubble is about to burst. So 2026, I believe that it's going to be a year when we're going to start seeing implementation of AI on the corporate level. But as you mentioned, it's going to happen rather slower than faster. Why? Starting from the sales, small efficiency gains, and while the company is getting familiar with this kind of solution, we can see, I do believe that the ultimate goal is having unified database and AI running on top of that, seeing all the processes within the company, having access to all the documents, which I believe from the efficiency gain might be humongous. But then again, implementing such a solution at the level of corporation of 1,000, 2,000 employees is not an easy thing. So
sure.
Let's see what's 2026 going to bring.
Actually, as an interesting fact, I had a meeting with the German bank last week, and they do a completely different thing than most German banks. They are a mid-sized bank, and they decided to put a plan. They want to reduce their back office employees, which is, of course, a bad news for them, like hundreds of people. They signed a deal with OpenAI directly. and they just decided to go all in. So I think this is the only example like that I've seen lately, and especially for the bank. But they just want to go all in.
Yeah.
I'm very curious.
And likewise, because I do believe that sooner than later it's going to put them much ahead of a curve, because that it is the future. And let's see.
Absolutely. So let's travel for a bit and move from Finland to Saudi Arabia. As one of the projects you're looking after at Espeo Software, you're MNT and Qatar project for our customer, and you're looking after one of the startups there. Can you tell us a bit more about this?
So that was my very first project in Espeo. And because of my startup background, it was like, just very smooth transition, let's put it this way. And so we are technical partners for 3 to be exact startups that are participating in Qatar's bank accelerator program. And it's definitely interesting to have a inside look at what's happening in the region in there.
Yeah.
So the region itself is developing very quickly, especially when it comes to fintech. And I kind of understand that. I like to compare it to what was happening in Poland in the 90s. There was no particular banking legacy system, so the digital banks just took it by storm. We never went through the phase of checks like it was in UK or France, right? It's just digitalization full in. And I can see a similar thing happening in Saudi Arabia region. It's definitely incredibly vibrant. There's more and more accelerators coming in. I was a part of Founders University in California, Jason Kalakani's pre-accelerator, and I know they recently opened their branch in Saudi Arabia, because there is a lot of happening there. At the same time, it's a little bit like everyone is... So at the same time, there's a lot of ideas that are being brought as replicas or already existing solution.
Okay.
So the benefits, the industry is developing very fast because there's lots of going on, but it can be hard to spot out the real innovation.
Yeah, but that's the point. In general, I used to say this for quite a while, and how many application systems do you actually need, right? It's like we have layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, and so on, and where's the stop here? So I'm also wondering if the fintech world is actually still capable of getting in new business models, new ideas, and so on.
And this is also a question which I've been asking myself, looking after the startups and seeing their business proposition, what they want to build and how. It's almost like the market is so saturated, and at the same time, majority of them is having a very similar approach. But at the same time, from the regulator's perspective, they are not that ready neither. So it's a matter of tinkering around, and there's it's a question of, is it going to be 100 small banks or one big one? How are they going to go more into European direction? But it's definitely very interesting to observe what's happening there.
And what's your take on the actual big bank in Qatar having that sort of accelerator program and working with new startups, fintech startups that might be actually their competitors?
So taking consideration, we're talking about main Qatar banks. I don't believe they are their competitors. Okay. So from the perspective of nurturing the talent which can support your growth in the long term, this is great. I mean, it's amazing. Then there is a question whenever there is a coherent vision behind it, but this is a different question.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to explore a bit your background, because when we first met and you started telling me the stories from your past, it seems like you are like three persons in one.
Thank you.
It's just outstanding, amazing. And first, I'd like to ask you about BSV blockchain, this project, and like your attempt to recreate Bitcoin in a specific environment. If you can tell me a bit more about that project.
Of course. So, I got a phone call at some point, and I was asked whenever I would like to help reshame Bitcoin Association, which is currently is BSV Association. It is a Swiss-based NGO which is responsible for Bitcoin Satoshi Vision. So as we know, there was a BTC, then there was a fork to Bitcoin Cash, and then there was a fork to Bitcoin Satoshi Vision, which in theory is responsible for restoring the original version of the white paper. So they perceive BTC as MVP to the original white paper implementation, because there is a block limitation, there's only the mining network, and in original white paper, besides the mining network, we also have the P2P network, so peer-to-peer, and the entire network look like mandala, which allows seamless transactions, with the promise of having ability to have million transactions per second, very cheap transactions, because only miners need to, there's a role of miner to record, validate, assemble the block and validate the block, but then all the users of the network, they're just using SPV, so Simplified Payment Verification Protocol. And my job was to support the organization in transition from like a marketing arm of BSV to a technical super hub. So together with Jad Wahab, who is the CTO of the organization at that time, we took on a task of looking after the protocol restoration, building the users network. Then we also took after the role of replacing the previous mining node, so SV node, into the Teranode project, so enabling the million transactions per second with terabyte blocks. And it was definitely hell of a journey. The team was spread from Hawaii to New Zealand, so it was a really like a startup vibe. Just bunch of friends who are really passionate about blockchain technology. We were learning and working directly with Craig Wright, trying to implement this, holy grail being the blockchain that is a public blockchain that is able to manage up to minimum million transactions per second. And at the end of the day, we did achieve that. The team is still working on this particular aspect. I think the production ready version of Teranode is there or just around the corner. So yes, that was definitely incredibly interesting periods of my life, because not many often we've got the opportunity to see firsthand and experience firsthand something that is being done for the very first time.
Sure.
And I remember we were in Gibraltar, because the idea was that, I believe that the team that is supposed to do outstanding work needs to spend some time together, especially the best, to spend all the time together. Sometimes it's not possible. So the idea was that every month or two we would meet as a group and work together. So especially for the Teranode team, we would have the cadence of meeting at least once a month. And once of the meeting took place in Gibraltar. There's this most luxurious Gibraltar hotel, which is a ship. So we stayed there, and just a small cabin without a window, a group of 5. And for the first time on a screen, we saw like, hey, it is actually working, Of course, it was a test environment, but we could actually see that we are reaching this million transactions per second, because, in order to process million transactions per second, first you need to generate them, right? So it's and the moment when we just saw how, those charts are going crazy, it is really like this moment of like, oh my God, we're going to Mars, it's working, just electric.
Yeah, that was actually my next question. I wanted to ask you about some spicy stories from the Bitcoin world of millionaires.
That's I'm not sure if all of them. There are definitely a couple of billionaires who are taking care of the from the ecosystem. Yeah. And yeah, my impression, especially in the BSV world, right? Because PTC is a slightly different world and BSV is a slightly different world. But my experience was that they're incredibly passionate and they really believe in their mission. And also taking into the consideration the current price of BSV, they're rather not millionaires, but definitely people who deeply care about what they're doing. And it's, from my perspective, there's nothing else we can, ask from a workplace. Like, if you've got people who really like what they're doing and they're dedicated to it, I mean, it's just perfect.
Yeah, and I need to say I love this passion about you. You are so passionate about pretty much whatever you do. But I'd like to think about this, that it's just we have super interesting projects at Espeo.
So. We do. And from blockchain to AI, so definitely the passion is here. It's a perfect place for you guys to find your passion.
Yeah, and
welcome.
You also told me once that you believe that blockchain is a perfect fit for AI for the future as the infrastructure, right?
Yes.
Like what's your take on this?
So when we think about the fact that quality of AI in terms of the output is highly correlated with the quality of data. And nowadays, as more and more data is being AI generated, it's like, you made a tea out of one tea bag, and then you use the same tea bag to make 5 more teas. Like, it's water, not tea, right? So quality of data is very important when it comes to training models. And then the quality of data is also going to be very important when we want to live in a safe world. The deepfakes, all of that, like it's becoming a greater risk. There was this moment when 11 Labs were told, the company should be shut down. What's going to happen? We're just going to have deepfakes. Someone's going to be calling to the bank in your name, and the company itself, was able to mitigate this PR risk. But it is the future, and more people are talking about these risks. So having data registered on a blockchain, they can be registered as a transaction header, for example, where we can see how the data was modified and if it was modified, allows the system, which is simply much safer.
So you mean because blockchain is trustless by design, so this is the main feature of this infrastructure, right? That would make sense for AI.
And being able to track the changes within the data set.
Okay.
So you can actually see if this data, what was the original entry? Was it modified? Wasn't it modified? And also, it will ensure that AI would not modify the foundational data set. So it gives this layer of authenticity and trust and transparency, which I believe we're going to need more and more when it comes to the AI, the word immerse in AI.
Yeah, and by the way, on that point, have you seen the data? I don't actually remember who did this, but the organization ran tests on several LLMs, and they actually informed the LLM that organization is about to change it to the other one. And since that started, the LLM itself started to sabotage the organization, so they can't actually change it to the other one.
It is, that's the tricky thing with LLM. Like, there is the black box, which we don't know how it works. So there's the element of unknown. I know that there is loads of startups which are working and you know, companies which are working on different ways of training models and approaching it. So we live in incredibly interesting times, and it's just you know, being on the forefront of this. It's one thing, you know, must be incredibly stressful, but then even from the outsider just looking at it is just phenomenal. You know, we live in such interesting times.
And going even further into your background, you also run the TrueMe startup, which is pretty much a different thing, but also super interesting. Tell us a bit about that.
So I spent the last 2 years trying to marry AI and consciousness. And it led me to the point when I realized that, one, people hate downloading new apps. That's one thing. And then I also learned that there's a significant demand for personal development / self-help solutions, but very often the delivery system is broken. So on top of spending last 15 years in tech industry, I spent over a decade in personal development and well-being space.
Okay.
And after I left Bitcoin Association, I realized that I'm kind of exhausted of living two lives. You know, there's the tech executive and there's a yoga teacher on the side, and they're both living inside of me, but at the same time they're separate. And TrueMe was my answer to finding this new identity of combining the two greatest passions of mine, and how it evolved. Today, together with my co-founder Piotr, we design an automated engine that allows the delivery of those transformational programs via WhatsApp or Telegram or whatever communication platform it is. And also, you know, in the stressful times of humanity, and I believe that the moment in time we live in today is kind of stressful because
so it's interesting and stressful.
It's interesting, but that's how it goes. You know,
Yeah.
We grow through friction. You know, when there is no friction, we don't grow. You know, you need a challenge. So it is challenging, and because it's challenging, people are looking for answers, because everything that was working previously just stops working. You know? And then people are like, okay, what's now? And people start to realize that having more money and having more resources just is not an answer. You know, like how many pair of shoes can you be wearing at once? Yeah, how many cars can you be driving at once? Like it's just, there is a limit to how much we can consume, and people are realizing that it's not about how much you can consume, but how much you can experience. And there is a limit of our ability to experience, which is defined by our nervous system. So that's why people are saying that, you know, the new currency of gold is going to be a calm nervous system, because you can feel it. You know, you can feel if someone is stressful and walking all over and just, you know, being super stressed, or when someone's presence is actually calm and you're like, I don't care how much money this person has. Like, I just feel much comfortable around the person who is calm. And this led me to my tinkering with AI and consciousness, and my idea was to build like a personal guide to every single person for the personal development. But then I realized that at the end of the day, it's about human beings, and one element which I've always seen for a very long time was social learning, because we learn from each other, and that's why we love internet forums, and that's why we love WhatsApp chats and groups, and we just inspire each other and motivate each other. So the current version of TrueMe is all about using technology and using, of course, AI, but we use it in a very deterministic way to help people remember what does it mean to be human, and help them, give them courage to experience, because people are scared, you know, and they close themselves. You can see it on the streets. You know, people don't talk to their neighbors anymore. They don't smile. They're just rushing, and as they're rushing, they become more prone to get worried and sick because there is news here and there's a war here and and we just get stuck in this crazy loop of forgetting what does it mean to be human.
Yeah, and I also think that people are much less resilient to, in general, challenge, stress, friction in life. And, there is this latest study in the UK stating that actually mental illness is like so overused. And there are so many people that actually, put the label of depression or whatever mental illness to their current well-being, which is just, life might be tough and people just tend to forget about it. And it just seems that, that sort of foundations of growing up that were there were pretty much we were growing up, which was a challenge, being uncomfortable, being outside your comfort zone is currently seen as attack from other person or a mental illness. So that's definitely a thing.
And also, the challenges that we were facing as teenagers, I believe were not, I want to use the word severe, but for me it's all about the amount of information the body and the nervous system need to process, because this is the stressor, when we were young, there's you're playing there was no mobile phones, you were not being compared or judged all the time, and the resilience is a huge topic nowadays, but I really believe it's what contributes to it. And I fully agree that the all terms every single child's got ADHD now, right? It's really just overused. But at the same time, our brains and our nervous systems are simply not tuned. They're not ready to receive so many informations on daily basis, because if you observe what happened over the last 10 years, even Poland is the perfect example for me. 20 years ago, no one had a smartphone. Yeah. There's, one TV, which was, maybe exaggerating, 30 years ago, right? The phones were just, still a stationary phones, one TV every couple of blocks, and you were playing with your friends, right? And within 30 years, we get to the point when we are literally frying our nervous systems. So it's the body needs time to adjust. And our mindset is I'm going to consume more, I'm going to do more, I'm going to go faster because there is another thing which I'm going to chase. And we just keep spinning in this madness. And hence, people are getting sicker and sicker. So
yeah, and always there is this one person that actually lives that life and doing more, faster, and so on. And I want to be like that person. But the good thing is there is positive things happening in the world, like for example Australia banning social media for people under 16 years old. So
and that's the direction. I fully agree. I fully agree. And let's just live off grid for time to time.
Yeah. And for the last topic, I wanted to bring out your adventures and travels, because it seems you've been everywhere. Is there a country that you haven't visited?
Speaking of Australia, so that's the one on my list which I still need to check. But
have you heard of the spiders there?
I've heard, but so I've got a very dear friend in Warsaw, and she's a mom of a lovely 9-year-old, and she recently bought him a spider, the Australian size spider, and I was visiting them last week, and I was like, am I ready to see the spider or not? So I'm kind of getting ready for the spiders, but yeah, even seeing the spider through Zoom, I was like, oh my God, this is how I admire you. You're the best mom ever. I wouldn't be able to live with fist-sized spider at home. But
what's the most interesting country or place you've seen ever?
Most interesting country, Japan was outstanding. Seeing naked women fighting with robots was at the same time perfect orders. Just the combination of future with order and structure and history was I felt very peaceful there, which was kind of weird. But yeah, Japan was definitely an interesting one. I was just talking to a friend about it over a weekend. Like, we're comparing our trips and our experiences from living abroad, and I brought to her, I landed in Argentina like 15 years ago, and I landed. I get out of the airport and I was like, oh, what have I done? I literally felt like I just moved to communistic Poland. It was like, empty buildings. And I was like, what on earth have I done? But yeah, it builds resilience.
Okay.
And I think that's kind of the point, the more you see and the more you observe and the more you allowed yourself to experience, it broadens your horizons. I mean, it's cliche, but it also builds your resilience, which, as we just discussed, is so needed in today's world.
That was actually so beautiful, and I would like to end here, not to, break the end of the podcast. So, yeah, thank you so much, Ola. Thank you so much, our listeners, and to our future clients. If you would like to work with Ola on some of our projects, you know what to do.
Let us know. We're looking forward to hearing from you.
And for the future employees interested in such interesting projects we have at Espeo Software, you also know what to do. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Ola.
Thank you.